At 4 a.m., inside a windowless room the size of a basketball court, a woman is watching 1,100 switches, gauges, and indicator lights, and she cannot look away for more than a few seconds at a time. A reactor core sits 300 feet from her chair. One missed alarm, one misread number, and the consequences don't stay contained to that room. She's not panicked. She's done this exact shift thousands of times. And in 2027, the plant she may end up working at, 3 Mile Island, the same plant that became America's worst nuclear symbol back in 1979, is scheduled to restart, this time to power AI data centers. A job the country spent 40 years trying to walk away from is suddenly one of the hardest licenses to get in America. So what does it actually pay to sit in that room? And is it worth the life it demands? Nuclear power reactor operators run the control rooms of America's nuclear plants, reading gauges, adjusting valves, and shutting a reactor down cold the moment a number drifts somewhere it shouldn't. As of early 2026, the U.S. runs 96 reactors across 57 commercial plants in 28 states, according to the Energy Information Administration. Illinois alone hosts 11 of them. But the workforce running those reactors is small, and it's been shrinking. The Bureau of Labor Statistics counts roughly 5,700 licensed reactor operators nationwide, and projects that number falling to 4,900 by 2034. A 15% decline driven by plant retirements and consolidation into fewer control rooms. And yet right now, 2 plants that were shut down for good are racing back to life. Palisades in Michigan and 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania. The reason is simple: electricity demand from AI data centers. Constellation Energy, the company reviving 3 Mile Island, secured a $1 billion federal loan for the project. A workforce that's shrinking on paper and suddenly desperate for people in reality. That contradiction is the whole story of this job right now. Here's the number first. The median nuclear power reactor operator in America made $122,610 a year as of May 2024, according to BLS data, more than double the median for all U.S. occupations. But that median hides a wide range. At the bottom, unlicensed plant workers, auxiliary and equipment operators start around $55,000 to $65,000 a year while training toward their license. That training isn't fast, and it isn't optional. A high school diploma is the legal minimum, but most plants prefer an associate's degree or Navy nuclear program background, followed by months of classroom instruction, simulator hours, and on-the-job training before a candidate is even allowed to sit the NRC's licensing exam, a written test on reactor theory and thermodynamics, plus a hands-on operating exam on the plant's own simulator. Get licensed and pay jumps hard. A newly licensed reactor operator typically lands between $90,000 and $110,000. Senior reactor operators and shift supervisors, the people legally certified to direct reactor operations, not just monitor them, push toward the top of the BLS range, $135,500 and up before overtime. Plant managers and the handful of operators who move into training or oversight roles can clear well past that. But those seats are rare. Most operators spend their entire career in the control room itself, and that's by design, not failure. And overtime is where the real money shows up. Operators work rotating 8 or 12-hour shifts, and outage season, when a plant shuts down for refueling, can mean 60 to 70-hour weeks for a month straight, paid at time and a half, or better. A senior operator working a heavy outage can add $20,000 to $30,000 in overtime alone. Location and union status matter too. Operators at large regulated utilities or under IBEW contracts tend to out-earn workers at smaller independent operators. And the paycheck doesn't need much cushioning. There's no truck payment or gear to buy that eats into it. What eats into it instead is different. Recertification costs, mandatory requalification training every 24 months, and a 6-year license that has to be formally renewed with a fresh medical exam every cycle. A shift starts before the shift starts. An operator arrives 30 minutes early, badges through 2 or 3 layers of security, Nuclear plants run some of the strictest physical security of any civilian worksite in the country and sits through a formal turnover briefing where the outgoing crew reads off every abnormal condition, every piece of equipment out of service, every number that's drifted since the last watch. Then it begins. For the next 8 or 12 hours, the job is to notice reactor power level, coolant temperature, radiation readings, turbine vibration, hundreds of parameters, most of them unremarkable, all of them mandatory to check on a fixed schedule, because the one round you skip is the one where something's wrong. Veteran operators describe it less like watching a screen and more like flying a plane on autopilot. Hours of quiet vigilance, occasionally broken by seconds that matter more than anything else in your week. Alarms happen. Most are minor, a sensor drifting, a pump cycling oddly, logged and handled by procedure, calmly, because panic is the one thing training is built to remove. A real event is rare, but when it happens, the room changes completely. Procedures come out, roles snap into place, and an operator who was scrolling a checklist 10 seconds earlier is now making decisions that could shape the next 50 years of a region's power supply. There's a specific dry humor in control rooms. Operators joke about the boring alarm that's cried wolf the same way for a decade, or run a standing bet on which piece of 1970s era equipment finally dies first. Some crews have rituals. The senior operator's same seat every shift, the same coffee order before a night watch, a whiteboard tally counting down shifts left before someone's retirement. Meals happen in shifts too, at odd hours. A 2 a.m. lunch break is normal, not a joke, and most control rooms keep a running stash of snacks because the cafeteria closed 6 hours ago. Some of these plants have been running since the Ford administration, and it shows. Equipment gets patched, upgraded, and babied for decades past what any other industry would tolerate, because replacing a reactor component isn't like swapping a part on a car. It can mean months of licensing paperwork before a single bolt turns. Operators develop an odd intimacy with machines older than they are. Outside the control room, the plant itself is enormous and strange. Turbine halls loud enough to require hearing protection, spent fuel pools glowing blue under 30 feet of water, dosimeter badges checked at every doorway. Operators who work in radiologically controlled areas rarely absorb meaningful dose. The entire job is engineered around minimizing exposure, but the awareness never fully leaves you. You know exactly how many millirems you've taken this quarter because the badge on your chest tells you every time you walk through a door. Most nuclear plants sit far from major cities, largely by design for cooling water access and safety buffer zones, which means operators often build their lives in small towns whose entire economy runs on the plant next door. Choosing this career can mean choosing your zip code for the next 20 years before you know whether you'll like the town. The rotating shift schedule is the cost operators name first. Cycling through nights, days, and swing shifts disrupts sleep permanently for a lot of people, not just during the hard weeks, but for years, in ways that surface later as chronic fatigue, weight gain, and cardiovascular strain. You miss dinners. You miss recitals. You miss them on a schedule you don't control because reactors don't pause for anyone's kid's birthday. Physically, this isn't a job that wrecks your back the way mining or commercial fishing does. The toll is quieter, circadian disruption, the mental weight of sustained vigilance, and, for operators working radiologically controlled areas, a low-level, well-managed but permanent awareness that your body is being tracked in millirems. What makes people quit usually isn't the reactor, it's the schedule and the ceiling. Senior reactor operator and shift supervisor slots are limited. A plant only needs so many, so growth beyond a certain point often means becoming a training instructor, moving into plant management, or leaving the control room for the corporate side of the utility entirely. So, is nuclear power plant operator worth it? This job is right for you if you can genuinely thrive on hypervigilance instead of being drained by it. If tracking 100 numbers for 8 straight hours feels like control, not boredom. It's right for you if a 6-figure income without a 4-year degree matters more than a predictable Monday to Friday schedule. And if you can build a life in a small town near a plant, instead of a city. This job will destroy you if you need consistent sleep to function, if missing family milestones on a rotating schedule chips away at you in ways you can't compartmentalize, or if you can't live with a career that depends on repassing an exam every 2 years for as long as you work. The pay is genuinely excellent, and it isn't disappearing. The industry contracted for 2 decades, but with Palisades and 3 Mile Island both racing to restart, and electricity demand climbing because of AI data centers, licensed operators are some of the most valuable, hardest to replace workers in American energy right now. The catch is that the number of seats is small. There are only about 5,700 of these jobs in the entire country, and BLS still projects the field to shrink even as individual plants come back online, because fewer, larger reactors need fewer total control rooms. So, is it worth it? If you can handle the schedule and the standing exam pressure, yes. Few careers this accessible pay this well with this much long-term demand. If you can't handle it, the job will find that fault line in you within the first 2 years, and it won't be gentle about it. America spent 40 years trying to forget the control room after 3 Mile Island. Now it's rebuilding it, one restarted reactor at a time. Because a country running on AI needs power nobody else can guarantee at this scale. It's not a job most people think about until the lights have to stay on. If you work in a nuclear plant, drop your experience in the comments. We read every one.